Sir, with all due respect, those SEALs are already dead. We just haven't admitted it yet. The young officer's words cut through the command center's chaos, and I felt an icy calm settle over me. To everyone else, I was just Sarah, the 60-year-old hairdresser, frozen in shock. But inside, behind the vacant stare and trembling hands, I was faking a cold, familiar calculus was running. They saw a helpless old woman. They had no idea they were looking at their only solution, until I decided to remind them. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now, let me tell you exactly how it all began. For 3 years, my world had shrunk to the size of a small salon on FOB Phoenix. It smelled of talcum powder and cheap aftershave, a scent I'd come to associate with peace. At 60, with silver gray hair I kept in a neat, sensible cut, I was the base's resident grandma. My hands, which had once field-stripped a rifle in under a minute in total darkness, now expertly wielded scissors and razors. Just a little off the top, Sarah, they'd say, sinking into my chair. I knew their kids' names, their wives' birthdays, the scores of games they missed from home. I was their slice of normal, a harmless fixture they could talk to without having to be soldiers for 10 minutes. Most of them, anyway. Spectre Platoon from SEAL Team 5 was different. They didn't see a fragile old woman. They saw me. Lieutenant Alex Rook Torres, a young man with eyes far older than his years, was the first one to really look. He'd walk in, his massive frame filling the doorway, and say, "Afternoon, ma'am. Hope we're not interrupting." Him and his boys, Marcus Rhino Cole, whose quiet demeanor hid a terrifying intensity, and the others. They treated me with a respect that felt familiar. They never called me Grandma. It was always Sarah or Ma'am. They'd sit not for haircuts, but just to talk, sharing stories from their missions in vague, sanitized terms I could easily decode. I'd listen, offering quiet advice that was more tactical than they ever realized. "Sounds like you guys were spread a little thin." I'd murmur while sweeping up hair, and Rook would give me a sharp, curious look. They were good kids. The best of the best. They reminded me of the soldiers I used to lead, back when my hair was still brown and my call sign was Shadow. But that life was over. I'd chosen this one. I had retired from the Army's most covert unit, a ghost outfit that didn't officially exist, after a mission in Bogota, where I had to choose between my orders and my conscience. I chose my conscience, and they gave me a quiet retirement. This salon, this quiet life, was my reward. I wanted nothing more than to be normal. But sometimes, the past doesn't care what you want. That final afternoon, Rook and his team came in for a last trim before their op. "Just a recon run, ma'am," he'd said, trying to sound casual. "Should be routine." I felt a familiar cold prickle on my neck. No mission in these mountains was ever routine. As I finished his haircut, my hand rested on his shoulder for a moment longer than necessary. "You come back safe, Alex," I said, using his first name for the first time. "All of you." He gave me that smile, the one that didn't quite reach his old eyes. "Always do, Sarah. Always do." That was the last time I saw him before the world caught fire. The alarm shrieked at 0237 hours. I was awake before the first siren completed its cycle, my body reacting with an instinct I thought I had buried under 3 years of peace. While others scrambled in confusion, I moved with a quiet purpose. I was dressed and walking toward the command center before most people had found their boots. My age and my role were the perfect camouflage. No one stops the harmless old hairdresser. They just assume she's lost or scared. I slipped through the chaos, a ghost in plain sight, and entered the nerve center of the base. The room was electric with controlled panic. Colonel Eva Rostova, a sharp, by-the-books commander I respected, was barking orders, her face illuminated by the cold blue light of tactical maps. "What's the situation?" she demanded. The response from a drone operator was clipped and grim. Spectre Platoon walked into a sophisticated ambush. 40 clicks northeast. Pinned down, surrounded, comms are spotty. My blood ran cold. I scanned the tactical display, my mind automatically processing the terrain, the enemy positions, the fatal lack of cover. They were in a kill box. "How many hostiles?" Rostova's voice was tight. "Estimate 52, Colonel." Heavily armed, well entrenched. They're professionals. 52 against 4. Those weren't combat odds. That was an execution. What about extraction? Negative. LZ is too hot. Any bird we send in gets shot down. The room's hope began to curdle into despair. Then came the final blow. Sir, we have visual. All 4 SEALs are alive, but they've been captured. They're being used as human shields. The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion. Everyone in that room knew what it meant. Torture for intel, followed by a gruesome propaganda video. Rostova went through the options, her voice strained. A ground assault would take too long. Airstrikes were impossible with hostages. I saw the logic trap closing around them, the rigid procedural thinking that was about to cost 4 good men their lives. I saw a gap in the enemy's formation on the map, a high-risk infiltration route nobody was considering. I stepped forward. Colonel, I began, my voice quiet. There might be a way. A young intelligence officer, stressed and dismissive, cut me off without even looking at me. Ma'am, please, this is a secure area. He turned back to the colonel. Sir, with all due respect, those SEALs are already dead. We just haven't admitted it yet. That was it. The dismissal. The assumption that my age and my apron meant my mind was soft. They saw a civilian. An old woman. I gave them one last look. A room full of the world's finest soldiers, paralyzed by an impossible problem. Then I turned and walked out, my heart a cold, hard stone in my chest. I went back to my quarters, locked the door, and moved to the back of my closet. Behind a false panel nobody knew existed was a large, dust-covered Pelican case. My hands didn't tremble as I opened it. Inside lay the ghost of Captain Sarah Shadow Mitchell. My custom-built M21 rifle, the familiar weight of my tactical vest, the scent of gun oil and faded memories. It was time for a shadow to fall over these mountains once more. The weight of the tactical vest settled on my shoulders like a long-lost friend and a painful memory all at once. My knees protested as I strapped on the gear, a sharp reminder that 60 years leaves its mark. The muscles in my arms, softened by 3 years of holding scissors, felt the strain of the 10-pound rifle. The body was weaker, there was no denying it. But the mind was sharper than ever. Muscle memory guided my hands, each buckle and strap clicking into place with an automaticity that defied the passage of time. I wasn't the powerful soldier I once was, but I didn't need to be. Power is a young soldier's game. I had something better. Experience. Slipping out of FOB Phoenix was insultingly easy. I knew the guard rotations, the camera blind spots, the precise moment a sentry would turn his head to fight off sleep. To them, I was just a shadow, a flicker in the periphery. 20 minutes later, the wire was behind me, and I was moving through the darkness of the Afghan mountains. The terrain was brutal, a treacherous landscape of rock and shale that would snap a young man's ankle. I moved differently. I didn't fight the mountain. I flowed with it, my steps measured, my balance rooted in 1,000 nights spent in places just like this. 40 kilometers, a 10-hour hike for a fully equipped squad. I planned to do it in 3. I ran, not the explosive sprint of a young SEAL, but a relentless, ground-eating jog that my body screamed against. My lungs burned. My knees ached with a dull, throbbing fire. I pushed it all down, focusing on the rhythm of my breathing, the cold night air, and the image of 4 young men kneeling in the dirt. They were counting on a miracle, and I was the only one coming. At the 30-kilometer mark, I slowed to a tactical crawl, the adrenaline now overriding the pain. I was in their territory, using the terrain to mask my approach. I climbed to a ridge overlooking the valley. Through my night vision scope, the scene played out exactly as the drone feed had shown, but with more terrifying clarity. 52 fighters, not 50, a slight miscalculation that could prove fatal. They were disciplined, moving in coordinated patterns. The 4 SEALs were in the center, bound and exposed. I identified the commander, the communications officer, the heavy weapons placements. It was a professional fortress. My original plan had been a simple diversion. But looking at them, I knew it wouldn't work. They were too disciplined. They would kill the hostages at the first sign of a conventional assault. I needed a different plan. I needed to decapitate the snake so completely and so quickly that the body wouldn't know it was dead until it was too late. I settled in 800 meters from the enemy commander. I calculated the windage, the elevation, the bullet drop. My heart rate slowed. Each beat, a steady drum in the vast silence. It was an impossible sequence of shots. 23 targets, from the commander to his key lieutenants and weapon specialists, all to be eliminated in under 90 seconds. Impossible for a unit. Impossible for a squad. But for a ghost, it was just another Tuesday. The enemy commander checked his watch and raised his hand to give the order. My finger rested on the trigger. It was time to get to work. The cough of the suppressed rifle was a whisper in the wind. 800 meters away, the enemy commander's head snapped back and he crumpled to the ground. Before his guards could process what happened, my second shot took out the radio operator. Chaos erupted, but it was the chaos of headless chickens. They fired wildly into the darkness, having no idea where the ghost that was hunting them was hidden. I worked through my target list with the cold, detached precision of a surgeon, a machine gunner, a lieutenant trying to rally his men, a mortar team, 23 shots, 23 kills in 87 seconds. The command structure was gone, but 29 fighters remained, scattered but still lethal. It was time to get close. I packed my rifle and circled the valley, moving like the shadow I was named for. From my pack, I pulled out the tools of my old trade, smoke grenades, and a portable communications jammer. Tossing the jammer into the valley severed their last link to the outside world. Then, I unleashed the smoke. The valley floor filled with a thick, disorienting fog. I became the monster in the mist. I moved through the smoke, a wraith armed with a combat knife and a silenced pistol. They were firing at shadows, at their own men, their discipline shattered. I would appear, eliminate 2 or 3 with precise, close-range shots, and vanish back into the smoke before they could react. I found the last 3 guards standing over the seals. They saw my silhouette emerge from the fog and raise their rifles. But I was already moving. Years of CQC training took over. A roll, a pivot, 3 shots in less than 2 seconds. They fell without making a sound. I stood over the 4 kneeling figures. Rook looked up, his face bruised, but his eyes sharp. "Whoever you are," he breathed. "You're my new favorite person." I said nothing, simply slicing through their restraints with my knife. "Can you move?" I asked, my voice a gravelly whisper they didn't recognize. "Who the hell are you?" Rook demanded as he grabbed a rifle from a fallen enemy. "Someone who hates seeing good men die," I replied. "Introductions later. Move." We moved as a unit, the 4 elite warriors instinctively forming a protective diamond around me. As the sun began to rise, we were clear of the valley. Rook finally stopped and turned to me. "Okay, I need answers. Now." I pulled down my hood and pushed back my goggles. The 4 of them stared. Their faces were a perfect picture of disbelief, shock, and dawning comprehension. "Sarah," Chun whispered, as if seeing a ghost. Our hairdresser." 52. Actually, I corrected gently. Intelligence was a little off. Rhino started laughing, a deep, rumbling sound of pure, unadulterated shock. "We've been getting our hair cut by a one-woman army for 3 years. When we walked back on at FOB Phoenix, the entire base came to a standstill. The assault team, just preparing to move out, stopped and stared. Colonel Rostova marched out, her face a mask of disbelief. "Lieutenant," she said to Rook, her voice tight. "Report. How did you escape?" Rook just pointed at me. "We didn't escape, Colonel. We were rescued. By her." Every eye on that base turned to me, the 60-year-old hairdresser in full tactical gear. The silence was deafening. Later, in a secure debriefing room, after my real file had been flown in, a CIA liaison offered me a choice. "You can disappear with a new identity," he said, "or you can come back. Active duty. Your country could use you, Shadow." I looked at him, then at Rostova. "I made my choice 3 years ago," I said. "I'm a hairdresser. This one night taught me something profound. For years, I believed that putting down my rifle meant I was no longer a soldier. I was wrong. True strength isn't about the weapon you carry. It's about having the wisdom and the courage to choose when to pick it up. I saved those boys not as Captain Shadow Mitchell, but as Sarah, the woman who cared about them. My past is a part of me, but it no longer defines me. Have you ever had a skill or a part of your past that you try to hide, only to find you needed it again when it mattered most? What would you have done in my shoes, hearing that those you cared for were left for dead? Do you think we ever truly escape who we once were? Or do we just learn to live with the ghosts inside us? I wonder how many ordinary people we walk past every day are hiding something extraordinary. If my story made you look at the quiet people in your life a little differently, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories like this. Share this with someone who knows that age is just a number and that heroes don't always wear uniforms. I read every single comment you leave, and I want to hear your thoughts. Your stories matter to me. More incredible, true stories from my life are waiting on your screen. They might not all involve 50 enemy fighters, but each one changed me forever. Watch those next, and I'll see you tomorrow with another story that proves you should never judge a book by its cover.